Hello and welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Professor Srinivas Reddy, former professor of Public Administration, Kakatiya University, Warangal, Telangana State. Today we will be discussing about one of the very fascinating thinkers of public administration, namely Mary Parker Follett. Mary Parker Follett has the singular distinction of being perhaps the only female administrative thinker. Perhaps Lillian Gilbert also has made her own little contribution, but she is considered to be one of the major contributors to the thought process in the subjects of public administration and management. In this lecture, we shall cover three aspects relating to Mary Parker Follett. The first is about her bio sketch or biodata as to what are her details, personal details and educational details. The second is the major ideas of Mary Parker Follett, and lastly a very kind of critical evaluation of the contributions of Mary Parker Follett. We'll start with the biodata of Mary Parker Follett. Mary Parker Follett was born in the year 1869 and died in the year 1933. She was one of those management experts who took keen interest in social administration and social work. Now, this is a rarity. Most of the thinkers in administration, the early thinkers on administration and management, have either hailed from mechanical engineering background or business background. She has had experience in vocational guidance, and she was one of the earliest to shift the focus of management and administrative studies from subjects such as state and community to business. Major works of Mary Parker Follett are: number one, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Second, this was published in the year 1896. The New State, published in the year 1920. And one of the more important works, Creative Experience, published in the year 1924. Dynamic Administration, which is actually a collection of works authored by Mary Parker Follett, but edited by Metcalfe and Urwick. And this was the book's name is Dynamic Administration, published in the year 1941. Coming to her major ideas, Mary Parker Follett's chief ideas are: number one, the concept of constructive conflict. Secondly, the concept of power, authority and control. Thirdly, the concept of coordination. And finally, the concept of leadership. We'll have a discussion of Mary Parker Follett's basic contributions, starting with the concept of constructive conflict. Generally, it is assumed that conflict is destructive, and most of the managers or administrators think that conflicts have to be avoided at all costs, and they get worried if there are ever some conflicts in the organization, and conflicts are perennial in every organization and more so in public organizations. Follett says that conflicts are only but natural. Conflicts are all not destructive. In fact, she is of the opinion that conflicts bring to the fore the contending ideas on some particular problem. Generally, in human life, we tend to overstate one side of the issue. Every development, every phenomena has two sides, both the positive and negative. Depending on our own particular position, we try to justify one-sidedly whether it is useful or harmful. But Mary Parker Follett says that conflicts are inevitable and conflicts are also useful. Now, this is where she says that some of the conflicts can be constructive. Now, just to take a small example from our day-to-day life. Say, for example, there is a village in which there are two contending groups or two leaders are vying for the position of, let's say, Sarpanch of the village or the Mukhya of the village. Now, in the election, both sides will articulate their viewpoints. They will talk about issues of development. Arguments and counter arguments will come, and these things will have the effect of educating the ordinary people. They will get to see both sides of the problem, and therefore, this is a very important important condition for taking a proper step. So, this is how she defends conflicts as a natural condition and also inevitable condition, and also in a sense conflicts are not really bad, and maybe a situation where there is no conflict is something perhaps indicating the ill health of the organization. Follett goes further and says that there are three ways in which in an administrative organization the conflicts are resolved, and these are the general ways. Maybe there are ever so many ways of resolving conflicts, but basically all of them would be falling into the following three types. One of them is domination, the second is compromise, and the third is integration. Domination here means that if there is a conflict, there are always two sides to the conflict. Conflict will not arise unless there are two contending sides. Now, between the two sides or among the two sides, there is one side or one group, one individual who is very dominant. Maybe the dominance is because of his higher level of articulation, maybe his higher level of information, insight, or physical power, or money power, or whatever kind of power one has or the group has, they tend to dominate and win the conflict in their favor. Now, in the resolution method, the first method of resolution, which is through domination, the conflict gets resolved. The victor or the winner will have the pride and will have his way. The loser will be very uncomfortable. He would be always looking for opportunities to take it back. Whenever it is possible, he or she would wait for his or her time to just make good the loss one has suffered, really or imaginatively. So therefore, the losing side looks for revolt or some reassertion at some particular opportune time, and therefore there is a kind of bad blood in the organization. Now, there is one side, and if it is two individuals, okay, perhaps the damage is less if it is at the lower levels. If the individuals are at the higher level, the damage is much more. And it will be even more if it is between groups. So, large number of people are dissatisfied. Maybe some people are satisfied. And it's not necessary that the group that is dominating is always in the majority. It's also possible that the winning group may be in minority and majority are annoyed with the kind of solution that is given to them. So therefore, this has to be avoided to the extent possible. Maybe you cannot forestall all occasions when conflicts get resolved through domination also. Okay, we look at the second important possibility of resolving or solving the conflicts. This is compromise. Now, I think the whole life, in fact, I'm reminded of the saying that marriage is a compromise. I think a man and woman can live together only by compromising to their mutual dispositions, temperaments, and demands, and all that. If these things don't happen, marriage will not stay. The marriage will be broken. Similarly, in an organization also, compromise is needed and compromise is made. Now, compromise means give and take. Suppose there are two groups, group A and group B, or two individuals, X and Y. One is giving up something and gaining something. The other one is also reciprocally doing the same thing. So this is one way of resolving conflicts. And there are occasions when somebody tries to dominate, And if the domination is matched by the other group also, the other group is equally powerful and assertive, I think no way it will be solved. So under such circumstances, compromise is arrived at, maybe by mutual agreement or through some third party intervention. When such a thing happens, what is happening is nobody really feels that he has won. Both will get something, but both will be more conscious that they have lost something. So compromise does not give satisfaction to either of the groups or the either of the individuals. So therefore, this is also not a very prospective, very welcome kind of conflict resolution. Now we come to Mary Parker Follett's original idea. I think these are some of the things that we generally know. What is very fascinating about her contribution is that she says there is a novel way of resolving the conflicts, and that novel way is integration of the interests of the contending persons or contending parties. Well, there are people with diverse interests, diverse viewpoints, and all that. Follett says that maybe if we deeply think, if we keenly examine, we explore and try to see, figure out, it's always, or at least sometimes possible, to accommodate both the groups, both the contending individuals, both the viewpoints without anybody getting a feeling of hurt or defeat. And of course, this is a very difficult, challenging, perhaps even complex job. But this is the only way in which organizational conflicts can be constructively resolved. Say, for example, just to give an example from a village life, maybe that there are two farmers who are planning to buy a piece of land which is being offered for sale by some individual farmer. Farmer X, farmer Y are contending. Farmer Z wants to sell away a piece of land. Farmer X wants to buy it because it is next to, it's adjacent, it abuts the land owned by X. But interestingly, this piece of land falls adjacent, abuts the land of the Y also. Maybe it is in between the lands of X and Y. So both are obviously interested. Now both will think that by buying that piece of land, their farm will become more viable. They can have better agricultural produce and all that. Both are very keen to have it. I think they fight over the issue, and sometimes bad blood develops, and there are, as you know, cases where people resort to violent means to have one's own way. It is something like dominance. But if there is, I think there are occasions when some sincere third parties or people or village elders or somebody will come forward and find out a solution. He will talk to somebody on the other side. Between the two pieces of land, there is one interspersed land that is offered for sale, but there is something by the side abutting the land of X or Y. And if the go between can convince somebody to offer that, and both will have it, or can persuade both of them, I think this piece of land is not really worth this and you need not fight over this. So, okay, there are ways in which you can do this, and this is the way in which you can satisfy both people or make both the parties not have any unpleasantness. And this is very important in organizations, because organizations are groups of people having some stable relations. In an organization, people or groups must have perfect understanding. In fact, the proper coordination is not merely meeting of the minds, but meeting of hearts. I think a good harmony and willingness to trust other person are very important, and this kind of conflict resolution is recommended by Mary Parker Follett. Now we come to next important contribution of Follett. It's about power, authority, and control. Now generally, authority is viewed as the command of the superior. Authority comes because of some coercive power in the individual. What's her Follett's interesting idea is that she talks about functional authority. She says authority may come from authorization, or maybe because of some formal arrangement in which somebody is given the power through statute or through some organizational arrangement. But there is another kind of authority which she talks about. This is a functional authority, authority of expertise. Now, there are some people, they may not be elders, they may not be the superiors, they may not be the bosses, but their word is taken for on its face value, because the advice is coming from somebody who is deeply knowledgeable, who has functional expertise. Follett is recommending this kind of authority. I think any authority is generally used as a synonym for officials, people in power having organizational positions, hierarchic positions. I think the message here for the administrators is that you should not always rely, and you should, to the extent possible, rely upon the functional authority or authority of expertise. Increase your knowledge, increase your understanding, insight into the problem. I think you will be respected, and your authority can be followed by subordinates even without invoking any coercive power of a threat of punishment or a fine or maybe dismissal or things like that will not be of use, and you can conduct the administrative affairs smoothly. We have seen two important ideas of Mary Parker Follett, namely the concept of constructive conflict and the concept of functional authority. Yet other important contribution of Follett is her contribution to the concept of technique of coordination. For the benefit of you, let me just mention that coordination is one of the major principles of organization. Coordination is one of the major functions of administrator, and coordination is very, very important in the organization. In fact, the human body, which has a perfect coordination between various systems and subsystems of the human personality, is far more effective than all other living beings, and this is largely because of the faculty of coordination. So therefore, in an organization also, coordination is absolutely important, and Follett talks about three important points about coordination. One of them is reciprocal coordination. Now, coordination of this kind presupposes that both the parties or different individuals should be having the idea of coordination in the mind, and each will be willing to coordinate with others. Now, this is something like exercise of lateral authority. Generally, authority, I think this is somewhat connected to the earlier concept of authority. Authority is always seen as a kind of vertical, relationship between individuals. But here, what Follett is talking is about the lateral kind of authority. Now, the authority or interrelation of things through coordination and through reciprocity. Reciprocity is give and take. I think you try to coordinate with my work. I think I have done something, and you're trying to adjust yourself to my work or my requirement, my compulsions. And if you are doing, human nature is that I will also start doing, reciprocated. So if you are good to me, I'll be good to you. So this is one important idea about coordination. The second major idea about coordination is coordination by direct contact. The problem mostly in public organizations is that organizations are very huge. There are hundreds and thousands and even lakhs of people working for one organization, and there is seldom possibility of everybody knowing the other person. So this brings in impersonality and wooden-headedness and all that. I think the personal touch will be missing. What Follett says is that coordination is better achieved if there is personal touch between two persons. So the principle of direct contact says that you directly contact the person who has a problem. The person who is not able to adjust with the work or pace of somebody else. I think speaking to the person directly will allow you to get the things first hand and resolve the problems imaginatively. Now, the third important idea about coordination is coordination at early stage. Now, sometimes you allow things to go too far, and then you bother that something has gone wrong, and it will be a lot of irreparable damage would have been already done, and back tracing and going back to the location of the problem may be very tedious, and sometimes it's impossible also. So therefore what's recommended is that coordination at early stage means just check for any symptoms or signals of lack of coordination, conflicting situations, and lack of synchronization. And if such things do happen, you pay early attention, and therefore coordination will be well achieved. So this is something about the coordination. Follett's fourth major idea is about leadership. Leadership is a very, very important concept and phenomena. I think the nations or the organizations, both business and public, the governmental organizations, the basic problem in most of them is lack of leadership. If there is a good leader in the organization, I think the organization will move forward. I think we have somewhere, while talking about administrative theory or coming to know about administrative theory, we would have discussed about Henry Fayol, who has made a big change in the organization, which was in deep losses. He made it most profitable organization. So change of one person can mean a lot of things for the organization. Therefore organization's leadership is of vital importance. Some of the very important ideas of Follett are: number one, what is a leader? Leader is one who energizes others. I think in the presence of the leader, or in the company of the leader, or under the tutelage of the leader, the followers tend to get a feeling that they are 1 inch taller than what they are. They get a feeling that they are big people. I think some kind of the magnificence in the personality of the leader gets reflected in the subordinates also. Subordinate becomes very confident, and he will be asserting, and he will be performing his functions well. So leadership is basically energizing the subordinates or associates. The second important aspect of leadership, according to Follett, is leader should develop initiative. Now, initiative is the ability to move forward first. People with initiative are those who do the first things, taking the first step. Now, all others are hesitating. Maybe people are dilly-dallying, whether to go forward or go backward. But there is one guy who comes forward and says that I'll take the lead, I'll go forward. So initiative is taking the first step. Initiative is finding solutions where others are not able to find. So initiative is very important, and this is one of the major problems in public administration. Now, one of the criticisms against Max Weber's model of ideal type of bureaucracy is that bureaucracy is something because of its rule-mindedness, goal-mindedness. What really happens is that the initiative of the individuals is killed. Now, this is also sapped. Initiative is also sapped by the concept of hierarchy. You have to follow the dictates of the superior. Okay, therefore, initiative is missing, and therefore, Follett is saying that second important function of leader is to develop initiative among subordinates. Maybe by giving more freedom, by having a liberal look at what they do, and also encouraging them, correcting them, and infusing confidence perhaps, are ways in which the initiative of the subordinates can be increased. As we have seen, the functions of leader, according to Mary Parker Follett, are energization and development of initiative. The third important thing that a leader should do, as far as followers are concerned, is to draw the best from each individual. No, leader's job is to get optimum or maximum from each individual under his charge. There are ever so many situations that people are idling, they are not doing their best, and they are gossiping, they are doing things at a slow pace, they are soldering, and these are all various problems that are there in administration, and more particularly in public administration. Because the private work is somebody's work, whereas government work is nobody's work. Everybody's work is nobody's work. So therefore, these are the problems, and therefore leader has to do these three things. Now, coming to the coordination principle once again, which Mary Parker Follett talks of, and she says leadership's job is basically threefold. These are the three functions, but additionally, she is also talking about three other things. One job of leader is ensuring coordination in the organization. Secondly, the leader has to define the purposes or objectives for which the organization is in existence. Define the purpose. Now, it appears as if, is it necessary for one leader to come forward and say what is the definition or what is the purpose of the organization? Everybody knows. But frankly speaking, there are ever so many people working in organization, they are not really aware of the central purposes. Reason perhaps is that they were never stated so categorically and clearly. Of course, these days there is, I think we are talking about concepts of strategic management, which is invoking, which is requiring the managers and administrators to develop a vision statement and mission statement. And these are the reflections of the purposes. I think this is the job that the leader has to do. Define the purposes of the organization, ensure coordination. And thirdly, they have to anticipate also. A leader should be a visionary. A leader should foresee what's going to happen in the years or times to come. It's not that he looks for organization to move, slide from one stage to another, but he should be keenly thinking as to what's going to happen. Whether the organization will be stable or will it face some big challenges, or are there any opportunities in the horizon, are there any big opportunities to expand and consolidate or to move forward and to do something excellent. So these are all the things the leader has to do. So the leader has to be a coordinator, he has to be a giver of the purpose, and finally, he should be a great anticipator. He should have the ability. I think this is the sense of planning, the sense of anticipation is very important. And because of this ability of anticipation, leader will make all preparations for future contingencies. Well, these are some of the major ideas of Mary Parker Follett. We come to the last leg of the lecture or presentation. We'll have a little critical appreciation of Mary Parker Follett. Let me just mention that critical appreciation does not mean finding fault with somebody's contribution. Critical appreciation literally means it is trying to know both the good and bad of it. Now, coming to the positive side, I think one thing that was already mentioned is that she is perhaps the lone female making a contribution to administrative theory and management theory. And some people say that in addition to her, there is also Lillian Gilbert, and who has made some contribution to time and motion studies and all. But in comparison to Follett, I think Lillian Gilbert's contributions are not, they pale into insignificance. We say that Henry Fayol is the father of management. But somebody interestingly raised the argument, who is the mother then? Now, the mother of management, some people say, is Mary Parker Follett. Mary Parker's Follett's major contribution is, I think, she has been a kind of bridge between the classical theory and the neoclassical or behavioral theory. Now, it's very difficult to parcel her neatly into one theory. I think she had a very creative way of, articulating standpoints and issues and phenomena in organization, and her contributions touch upon both classical and neoclassical or behavioral schools of thought. Her one more important positive point of Follett is she has located her theory in the context of democracy. She has philosophized about the democratic administration, how democratic administration should be. I think as in the concept of leadership or coordination, we have seen our major ideas where the onus is on the leader. In whichever situation, the leader or the ruler does more than the ruled. I think that's a democratic way. Democratic essence is that the leader should work more than the followers. So she's carving out some roles for leaders which are very innovative and fascinating, and which put the onus on the leaders. Therefore, our ideas are very novel and refreshing. Another major point that needs to be seen about her contributions is she's a forerunner to a new type of organization known as matrix organization or the project kind of organization. Earlier, we were familiar from the writings of administration and management thinkers about two types of organizations, vertical organization and flat organization. She talks about a third kind of organization, and this is a matrix organization. Motorola company has tremendously profited from this kind of organization. She is also a contribution. Now, she also talks about the last thing, that is in the society, in the public sector particularly, there is turmoil and conflict. I think there are many countries. India perhaps is fortunate to have a stable and peaceful democracy, but everywhere there is turmoil and there are conflicts and all that. The ideas of Follett can be expanded to cover the statecraft or major issues of society and governance and all that. I think what she is talking about, the constructive conflict resolution, is applicable to wider areas, and therefore her contribution has to be viewed as something very fascinating. Now, only perhaps one criticism that you will have is that she cannot be parceled into one particular theory of management or administration. Well, friends, I think we have covered the contributions of Mary Parker Follett. Let me just recapitulate what has been said. Mary Parker Follett is a very fascinating writer, perhaps the lone major thinker of administration and management. Her ideas are very novel. She has democratized administration, and she has given very fascinating ideas about how to run administration democratically. So therefore, her ideas are relevant for so many organizations, both business, government, and service sector organizations. Thank you.